I was 6 or 7 and shared a room with my older sister. I woke up randomly in the night and rolled over onto my side. My sister was laying on her back in her bed, fast asleep, and directly above her was a man floating with his arms out. He was white and see-through, but I could somehow tell his curly hair and 5 o'clock shadow was brown. But it gets weirder. He had massive, white feathered wings coming out of his back. I only stared at him for a few seconds and wasn't really scared, until he rapidly turned his head from my sister to make eye contact with me. That's what scared me. His expression wasn't menacing, more surprised that I could see him. But he scared me so badly. All I could do was throw the blankets over my head. I couldn't even scream. I had the blankets over my head all night, until I saw some daylight and heard birds chirping. I was so excited to tell my sister when she woke up, but she didn't believe me. No one did. So I made a promise to myself that I would never forget what I've seen. It was real. In the 90s, my aunt was making a 2-hour drive in the Arizona high desert. She had a Chevrolet geo-tracker and was just cruising and listening to the radio. At some point, she was on a very bumpy dirt road, abundant with jagged rocks and deep holes. As she continued down the road, one of her tires popped, which caused the entire car to lose so much balance that it flipped into the ravine alongside the road. Time really does slow down in those moments, and she remembers saying, "Please help me, God," while she watched her field of view spin. All at once, she felt large arms wrap around her, and she was taken out from the front windshield, and what she says was placed laying face up on the ground. She remembers looking at her car, which was completely upside down, and seeing the wheels spinning. She got up, and there was no one around her. Now, geo-trackers were not known for their supreme safety features. In fact, many models were known to be fairly dangerous to operate. I should also mention that her vehicle was a soft-top convertible, and with the car landing upside down, she most likely would have been crushed. My aunt doesn't remember any aches or pains. She was seemingly uninjured. Since it was the 90s, she wasn't carrying a cell phone, and she also had no food or water with her. She was about 20 miles from any town or any people, and she decided that she had no choice but to start walking, so she made her way up the dirt hillside and back onto the road. But very soon after, a station wagon carrying a family drove up to her and asked if she was okay and if she needed a ride. She gratefully accepted and climbed in. The family said that they would take her wherever she needed to go, but they had one place that they had to stop at first. Their local church was expecting them to drop off supplies for an upcoming event. She told the family and the church people what happened, and they all prayed over her and believed it to be a miracle. The geo-tracker was completely totaled and unsalvageable, but incredibly, she didn't suffer any broken bones, no head trauma, not even a cut or a scrape. Though my aunt does say that the days following the accident, bruises started forming. There were only 2 bruises on either side of her arms, and they were in the shape of handprints, as if someone or something really did save her life. When I was a kid, about 8 years old, I lived in California for a little while, and the school I went to was full of rude and mean little kids. I never had a friend there. One day, my mom was working and she asked the babysitter to pick me up from school, but I guess she forgot, and I was eventually alone in this school since my mom always told me to never walk alone. I was alone for about an hour, just reading a book, when out of nowhere, an African American kid about my age, and that I had never seen, came up to me and started talking to me. I was super shy and still am, but for some reason I felt really at ease and started talking to him like he was my best friend. We started playing hide and seek, tag, hopscotch, and he gave me candy. I remember putting the wrappers in the bag while he left his on the floor. About 30 minutes later, I heard my mom frantically yelling my name, and I came out happy to tell her about my new friend. I tell her that another kid was forgotten too, and she told me to go get him so we could take him home, and I ran to go look for him, but he was nowhere to be found. I looked where he was sitting and eating candy, and his candy wrappers that he left were gone. It was like he was never there. I go back and I tell my mom, and she looked at me not knowing what to do, but eventually we went home. When we got home, I opened my bag to take my homework out, and I realized the candy wrappers I had put in were gone. I know I didn't imagine any of it, because he had braided my hair, and I still had the braid. I still don't know who or what I met that day, but I wouldn't mind meeting them again. Yesterday, I was cleaning a client's house. I was wrapping up mopping their upstairs. I had a lot on my mind, so I was on autopilot and not really paying attention to where I was walking. I was walking backwards while mopping, and all of a sudden, I heard a firm male voice in my head say stop. I instantly stopped walking backwards and mopping, and I looked down to see that if I even moved 1 more inch, I would have fallen down the stairs. I felt more shocked than anything that I could have just died, or at least gotten seriously hurt. It didn't even register creepy to me that I heard a voice in my head that wasn't mine. Another time this happened was a few months ago. I was driving to work and was driving down a road with a speed limit of 55. I was coming up to an intersection that always has people running a red light or pulling out in front of you. A lot of accidents happen at this intersection. I was almost to the intersection, and I see there's a car coming towards me in the opposite side of the road. No big deal. They were going straight, and so was I. Wrong. I then heard a very firm male voice in my head say slow down. I instantly hit my brakes, and the car coming at me that was going straight ended up going right in front of me. If I hadn't slowed down, both of our cars would have been totaled, and we would have been both seriously injured or dead. It was about 2015, and I was driving back from North Carolina to New York. It was about 4:30 a.m., and I was on the New Jersey Turnpike. For all of those who don't know, I-295 is about 120 miles, and about 100 of those are straight through a heavily forested area. So if you've ever driven on the interstate at night, you know how it is. Normally, you get into a pack with other vehicles. Call it subconscious or even a conscious decision, but normally around 5 to 6 vehicles will group up and drive together. So in this pack was me and my minivan, with my wife and my kids, a few other vehicles, and an 18-wheeler. I'm in the center lane and going about 80 miles per hour, when something tells me to pull to the left lane and slow down. There was no reason, nothing urgent. It was almost an instinct. So I calmly did so. About a minute later, the 18-wheeler passes us in the center lane, and he gets about 20 feet ahead of us. All of a sudden, there was a whole herd of deer in the middle of the highway. I don't mean 1 or 2. I mean like 10. The 18-wheeler hits them first, and the bodies of the deer just fly to either side of the road. I remember seeing a deer fly in front of me and hit the ground, twitching. Being that it's an 18-wheeler, I doubt that he even got a scratch. No one slammed on their brakes or skidded out of the way. Of course, we all slowed down a tick, and I had to catch my breath, but my family and I were inches from death that night. If my minivan had hit the herd head-on, it would have been a total wipeout of my vehicle, And who knows how many vehicles behind me I would have caused to crash also. Was it my guardian angel? Was it God? I really don't know. But that's one of my stories.